They thought she was just the T-girl, a quiet nobody in a gray uniform, someone you don't even look at twice in a Pentagon briefing. But when the SEAL Admiral mocked her, asked her rank as a joke, he never expected her answer. Because the moment her sleeve slipped, the room froze. Not at her reaction, at her tattoo. A sniper's tattoo, Barrett M82A1, mission markers, kill counts, and 8 names inked in memorial. 8 soldiers who died in an ambush, only one person survived. Her, Master Sergeant Brianna Mitchell, Ghost Unit 7. And in the next 30 minutes, she was going to expose the traitor who sold her team out and bring an entire command structure to its knees. Before we begin, if you believe in honoring hidden heroes and real courage, take 1 second to comment and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach the world. The tension in Conference Room 7 could have cracked steel. Admiral Thompson paced at the head of the table, barking orders, fuming over paperwork, and snapping at anyone within arm's reach. To him, today was supposed to be a simple internal briefing, nothing more than an administrative update, a box to check, a formality. He had no idea the most important person in that room was the one quietly pouring tea. Her name tag said Mitchell B. Her uniform was plain, spotless, unremarkable. To everyone in that room, she was just staff, invisible, harmless, beneath notice, which was exactly what she needed them to think. She moved with practiced silence, setting down cups, aligning papers, ensuring nothing disrupted the meeting. But beneath the surface, she was cataloging every word, every expression, every slip of protocol. Because today wasn't about tea, it was about evidence, and she was gathering it with the same precision she once used on battlefield reconnaissance. Thompson barely looked at her as she passed behind him. "Mitchell, you can go," he snapped. "We're discussing classified matters." The woman didn't even blink. "Sir, I'm required to stay until the table is cleared." Inside, she recorded the incident. Senior officer dismisses clearance protocol without verification. Another violation. Another thread in the web tightening around them. Across the table, Captain Rodriguez smirked. "Look at her. She's shaking just holding a teapot. I bet she's never even touched a weapon." Quietly, she adjusted the teacup, her hand steady as stone. If he knew what that hand had done, the distances it had measured, the triggers it had pulled, he wouldn't have finished the sentence. But he didn't know. Not yet. And the second he said it, 3 things happened in the room. Rodriguez's joke revealed sensitive operational knowledge he wasn't cleared for. Thompson let it pass. Another security breach. Mitchell logged every word with cold precision. She kept her face blank, invisible. But the truth was already unfolding. General Stevens cleared his throat. "Admiral, we need to address the Ghost Unit ambush. New evidence indicates the enemy knew exactly when and where our team would be." Mitchell froze the moment he spoke. He wasn't cleared to know that, and she had recordings proving it. Rodriguez leaned back. "Ghost Unit? Didn't those guys get wiped out because their sniper screwed up a wind call or something?" For the first time, Mitchell's eyes lifted. Her expression didn't change, but the air in the room did. Because that sniper he mocked was her. A soldier with 17 confirmed long-range eliminations. A veteran with 6 combat deployments. And the only survivor of the ambush he was casually disrespecting. She cataloged it. Another violation, another piece of the puzzle. Thompson groaned. "This is why I can't stand these investigations. Too much paranoia, too many accusations." "Mitchell, seriously, why are you still here?" "I'm finishing my assigned duties, sir," she said gently. But in reality, she was finishing something entirely different. Rodriguez leaned closer, trying to intimidate her. "Relax, sweetheart. We're just talking." "Nothing dangerous." She raised her eyes, calm and steady. "Sir, discussing classified operations in front of personnel without confirmed clearance is dangerous." Silence. No one expected the tea lady to speak with the calm authority of someone who's walked into fire and didn't flinch. Thompson barked, "Enough! Mitchell, step aside!" When he reached to pull her arm away, the sleeve of her uniform shifted, just enough to reveal a fragment of black ink beneath. A rifle, a symbol, a tattoo only one community in the military ever wore. Thompson froze. "What? What is that?" Mitchell gently pulled her sleeve back down. "Just a tattoo, sir." But his tone changed. It wasn't annoyance anymore. It was fear. Rodriguez scoffed. "What, she got it at a mall? Come on." But as Thompson stared at her sleeve, his heartbeat thudded louder. He'd seen that tattoo before, in classified dossiers, in after-action reports, in the files of operators whose names echoed through special operations history. Before anyone could react, Mitchell reached for a file sitting on the table. "Sir," she said quietly, "your last statement needs to be documented." Thompson frowned. "Documented? What are you talking about?" She placed something small, metallic, and cold on the table. A device they all recognized. A device none of them expected her to have. A fully authorized Inspector General surveillance recorder. Rodriguez paled. Stevens stiffened. Thompson took a step back. Mitchell's voice didn't rise. Didn't tremble. "Gentlemen, this room has been under federal surveillance for the past hour. Every word, every violation, every breach has been recorded." Rodriguez stuttered. You're recording us? Who gave you permission?" She looked directly at him. "The Pentagon." 3 men who thought they ran the room suddenly realized they had never been in control at all. Thompson's jaw clenched. "Mitchell, who are you?" She finally stopped moving. Finally met every pair of eyes and spoke the truth. "Master Sergeant Breonna Mitchell, Special Operations Sniper, Ghost Unit, call sign Valkyrie, assigned to the Inspector General's Office for Counterintelligence." Her voice sharpened. "And I'm here to investigate the betrayal that killed my teammates." Rodriguez's face drained of color. "Ghost Unit? But you're alive?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Thompson swallowed hard. What have you found?" Breonna placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. 17 security breaches in the last 6 months. 9 unauthorized access attempts. 5 classified documents left unattended. 3 instances where details of the Ghost Unit ambush were discussed out loud in unsecured locations. Then she looked at each of them. "And the person responsible for leaking the mission coordinates is in this room." Every officer froze. No one breathed. Rodriguez whispered, "Who?" Breonna looked at them all, calm, steady, unbroken, and then she pointed to the door. "Because the Inspector General's team is outside right now, and they already know." The door handle turned. The first agent stepped inside, and the room went dead silent. The door opened just as Master Sergeant Mitchell finished her sentence, and every officer in Conference Room 7 turned rigid in their seats. Director Chen stepped inside first, calm, unreadable, hands folded behind his back, followed by 3 federal investigators in plain suits carrying sealed evidence kits. Their presence alone was a verdict. But Breonna didn't flinch. She stepped back into parade rest, her posture straight as a rifle barrel, eyes forward, silent. She looked more like a soldier giving a battlefield briefing than a service worker collecting teacups. Agent Morrison, sharp-eyed, mid-50s, carrying authority like a second skin, addressed the room. "We're proceeding with the next phase of the investigation." Every man in the room suddenly looked much smaller. Thompson swallowed hard. "Master Sergeant, earlier you said the person responsible for leaking the Ghost Unit coordinates is in this room. I want clarity now." Breonna didn't hesitate. "Sir, there were 17 classified access violations in the last 6 months. But one of them wasn't a mistake. One was deliberate." Rodriguez shifted in his seat. "Deliberate, as in treason," Breonna said, her voice calm and steady. The word hit harder than any rifle crack. Before anyone else could speak, Colonel Martinez shot to his feet, his face pale, sweat beading across his forehead. "Master Sergeant, I need to say something." Agent Morrison lifted a hand. "Colonel, this is a secured investigative environment. Anything you say will be recorded as testimony. If you prefer legal counsel—" "No." His voice trembled. "No, Agent. I can't stay silent anymore." The room waited, breath suspended. Martinez closed his eyes and exhaled shakily. "I leaked the ghost unit coordinates." Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Rodriguez's jaw fell open. Major Brooks cursed under his breath. General Stevens' pen slid from his fingers. Even Thompson, who had commanded men through firefights and naval crises, suddenly felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, with the ground cracking under him. "You? What?" Thompson whispered. Martinez's voice shattered. "I was drowning, gambling debts, $250,000. They came to me. Foreign agents. They knew everything. My habits, my weaknesses. They said they could clear the debt if I helped. Just one file, just one set of coordinates. I told myself it wouldn't kill anyone." Brianna stepped forward, and her voice was no longer clinical. It was personal. "Sergeant Chen was 24. He just bought an engagement ring." Martinez flinched. "Sergeant Williams planned to retire this year to raise his granddaughter." His knees buckled slightly. "Sergeant Jackson was our medic. He saved 31 lives before his last deployment." His breathing hitched into a sob. She continued, naming each of her fallen teammates, turning their names into a blade of truth and grief. And Martinez crumbled under it. "I'm sorry," he choked. "I'm so sorry. If I could give my life to bring them back." "You can't," Brianna said quietly, "but you can tell the truth." Agent Morrison stepped between them. "Colonel Martinez, you are making a voluntary confession to federal crimes. You will remain in this room until formal detainment procedures begin." Martinez collapsed back into his chair and buried his face in his hands. But Brianna wasn't finished. "There's more you need to ask him," she said calmly. "He didn't approach foreign intelligence. They approached him." Rodriguez frowned. "Meaning what?" Brianna's eyes swept the room. "Meaning someone with inside access is feeding foreign services information on who to target, who has vulnerabilities, debt, family issues, psychological weaknesses." A wave of dread spread across the officers. This wasn't a lone betrayal. This was a system, a network. Stevens muttered, "My God, we're compromised at the personnel level." Rodriguez raised his head, voice shaky. "Master Sergeant, earlier you said I had access to information I shouldn't. How did I get that intel? I never accessed those files." Brianna turned toward him, and her look alone made him stiffen. "Someone told you, sir, someone with high-level access." "Who?" "You should ask yourself who you've had casual conversations with. Bars, hallways, base gym, people who talk off-record. Those are where leaks thrive." Rodriguez looked sick. Agent Morrison stepped forward. "Master Sergeant Mitchell, the photographic evidence?" Brianna unlatched a small digital recorder from her belt, pressed a sequence of buttons, and handed Morrison a memory card. "These images document 2 months of security violations," she said flatly. "Classified documents left unattended. Unauthorized screens left visible. Personnel photographing restricted information with personal devices. Casual classified discussions in unsecured locations." Stevens stiffened. "Photographs of—" Agent Morrison tapped the camera, scrolling. "Sir, there's an image of you photographing a classified briefing packet with your cell phone." Stevens turned white. I was only taking a quick picture. For my notes, it's a felony," Morrison said. "Intent doesn't erase impact." Across the room, Thompson felt his stomach drop as an image appeared on Morrison's screen. Himself in the base cafeteria, leaning over classified documents. Brianna spoke quietly. Sir, I captured that from across the room with a standard telephoto lens. If I could, foreign intelligence could too. The Admiral's face sank into his hands. The room's chain of command was collapsing under the weight of truth. Betrayal wasn't coming from outside the Pentagon walls. It was festering inside. Agent Wong from NSA entered next, holding a tablet. Master Sergeant Mitchell, please confirm. You documented 18 unauthorized access attempts? Yes, sir. And 14 verbal breaches of compartmentalized intelligence? Yes, sir. Wong turned to the room. Every one of those breaches could have resulted in operational casualties. Rodriguez whispered, We did this to ourselves. But the worst was yet to come. Director Chen re-entered with fresh intel. Inspector General requests immediate isolation of all personnel pending questioning. Morrison nodded. No one leaves this room. Martinez sobbed softly. Rodriguez rubbed his temple. Stevens silently stared at the table. And Admiral Thompson, once the most powerful voice in the room, looked at Bryona like a man confronting the ghost of everyone he had failed. Master Sergeant, he said, barely a whisper. Am I under investigation too? She didn't blink. Sir, everyone in this room is under investigation. A beat of dead silence. Then Thompson exhaled shakily. What happens next? Brianna stepped forward, eyes cold and resolute. Now, she said, we find out who else betrayed my team. The lights above flickered as the power briefly fluctuated, and then the conference room door locked automatically from the outside. The lock clicking shut echoed through the conference room like the chambering of a round. No one spoke for several seconds. Even the federal agents paused, waiting, listening, as if the building itself had just shifted into a higher state of alertness. Brianna didn't flinch. She turned toward the door, head slightly tilted, studying the mechanism. It wasn't fear. It was analysis. Pure, cold, professional. Standard IG lockdown protocol, Agent Wong said, prevents tampering, interference, or unauthorized communication. Thompson murmured, or escape. No one disagreed. Agent Morrison stepped forward again, tablet in hand. The next step is individual questioning. You will be escorted one by one to secured rooms. This will proceed in order of rank unless investigative urgency dictates otherwise. Rodriguez swallowed. Investigative urgency? Morrison didn't soften her tone, meaning if certain evidence points directly at one person, we move them first. Everyone understood the subtext. Colonel Martinez would be first. His confession demanded it. Federal agents moved to escort him, but he raised a trembling hand. Before I go, Master Sergeant, I need to ask something. Brianna turned toward him, expression unreadable. Did you hate me? When you found out? His voice cracked on the last word. Her eyes softened, but only for a moment. No, Colonel. I hated what your decision did. But hate doesn't fix anything. Truth does. It was the closest thing he would ever get to forgiveness. He nodded, defeated, and the agents let him out. As the door sealed behind them, tension ballooned inside the room. Every man present understood that Martinez's confession was only the beginning, not the end. Wong shifted his weight. Before we continue, there is a matter that requires immediate clarification. Master Sergeant Mitchell mentioned additional personnel targeted for recruitment. We need that list now. Brianna reached into her uniform pocket, pulling out a small encrypted drive. I'll provide it during my debrief, but you need to understand something first. Her eyes swept across the remaining officers. Some of the people targeted weren't chosen because of weakness. They were chosen because of access. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then the room erupted in whispers. Rodriguez leaned forward. Are you saying some of us were chosen deliberately because of what we know? Yes, Brianna replied. Foreign intelligence isn't sloppy. They profile their targets. They know who handles what information and who thinks their position makes them untouchable. The line hit deeper than any accusation. General Stevens stiffened. Master Sergeant, are you implying that someone in higher command? I'm not implying anything, she said firmly. I'm stating that recruitment attempts weren't random. Someone on the inside is feeding the enemy personnel files. Wong stepped forward. Are you suggesting there is a second traitor? Someone with clearance high enough to access personnel vulnerabilities? Yes, sir. The room froze. Rodriguez exhaled a curse under his breath. No, no, this can't be that deep. It's deeper, Brianna said. Martinez was just the first thread. Thompson rubbed his forehead, eyes hollow. Who? Who could possibly have that level of access? Brianna's gaze shifted, slowly, deliberately, toward the front of the room. It landed on General Stevens. Every officer straightened, but her expression didn't accuse. It assessed. General, she said calmly, yesterday morning you referenced an ongoing counter-intel investigation, one that was above your clearance level. Stevens blinked. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to. Her voice dropped. Which means someone gave you that information. A ripple of dread shot through the room. Stevens shook his head violently. No, I don't share material. I don't pass anything outside my channels. That's the problem, Brianna said quietly. You didn't have to. Someone is feeding multiple officers classified details to create confusion and shift suspicion. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, tension tightening his jaw. So, someone up the chain is manipulating us? Someone up the chain, Brianna confirmed, or someone parallel to it. Agent Morrison interjected. Master Sergeant, do you have a name? I have a pattern, Brianna replied, and evidence. But before I provide it, I need to determine whether any of you are being watched right now. The room fell completely silent. Watched by who? Thompson asked. By the same network that recruited Martinez. He felt the blood drain from his face. Brianna walked to the center of the room and set her scanning device on the table, pressing a few buttons. A soft pulse spread through the space. A barely audible hum that made the ceiling lights flicker. What is that? Rodriguez asked. A signal sweep, she said, detecting unauthorized electronics. Her words hadn't even fully left her mouth before the device's screen flashed bright red. Wong's eyes widened. Something's broadcasting from this room. Agent Morrison snapped to attention. Identify source. Brianna didn't speak. She moved. Calm, precise, lethal in her composure. She passed between chairs, scanning each officer in turn. The red signal pulsed stronger as she approached the far corner of the conference room, where a maintenance cart sat half pushed against the wall. Thompson frowned. That wasn't here earlier? Brianna crouched beside it. One swipe of her hand, one flick of the scanner. And then, the device emitted a sharp, continuous tone. Rodriguez stood. What is that? Brianna reached under the bottom shelf, her fingers closing around something metallic and cold. She pulled it out. A transmitter. Military grade, encrypted, active, Agent Wong swore. That's not base issued. That's foreign hardware. Everyone in the room stared at the small blinking device like it was a live grenade. How long has that been in the room? Thompson whispered. Brianna didn't answer immediately. She turned the transmitter over in her hand, studying its markings, internal structure, and serial number. And then her eyes narrowed. This wasn't placed randomly, she said softly. It was planted by someone who knew exactly where I'd sit today. Morrison moved closer. Meaning, Brianna stood slowly, transmitter in hand. This wasn't meant to gather intelligence, she said. It was meant to monitor me. A cold wave washed over the officers. Rodriguez swallowed. Master Sergeant, are you saying someone knew who you really were before today? She met his eyes, deadly calm. No, someone knew who I was the moment I arrived on this base. A long, horrible silence followed. Wong spoke first. Do you know who? Brianna exhaled, and her answer froze the room. Yes, but you're not going to like it. She turned toward the doorway just as alarms began blaring across the facility. Loud, urgent, panicked. The lights shifted to emergency red, and Brianna whispered, "He's already here." The alarms pulsed like a heartbeat, deep, metallic, echoing off the steel bones of the building. Red emergency lights bathed every face in a dark, pulsing glow. Federal agents instinctively moved into defensive positions. Stevens reached for the radio clipped to his vest. Rodriguez stepped back, scanning every corner of the room as if the walls themselves could attack. But it was Brianna who didn't move. She stood perfectly still, the kind of stillness warriors learn only when they've had to listen for death in the dark. "Master Sergeant," Agent Morrison barked, "identify the threat." Brianna's eyes didn't shift from the hallway outside the conference room. "We were never alone," she murmured. "Someone anticipated this meeting. Someone powerful enough to trigger a base-wide alarm the second I found that transmitter." Rodriguez's voice trembled. "Who could trigger alarms like this?" "Someone with access," Brianna said. "Access above all of you." General Stevens paled. "Are you implying—" But he didn't finish, because footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow, measured, confident, the kind of walk that belonged to someone who didn't expect anyone to challenge him. Every agent drew their weapon. Brianna didn't. She stepped forward, the red light glinting off her sniper tattoo. The mark none of them would ever see the same way again. The door slid open. Standing there was a tall man in a crisp, immaculate uniform, one that carried more authority than anyone else in the room. His presence alone seemed to choke the air. 4 stars gleamed on his shoulders. A full admiral. Agent Wong stiffened. "Admiral Harrison?" Rodriguez whispered. "CENTCOM. That's the man who briefed her before deployment." Brianna's jaw tightened so subtly only someone trained to read micro-expressions would notice. "Admiral," she said calmly. His eyes slid over every person in the room before settling on her. "Master Sergeant Mitchell," he said, voice smooth, polished, practiced. "You weren't supposed to discover that transmitter." Morrison stepped forward. "Admiral Harrison, you need to explain your presence here." He ignored her. He spoke only to Brianna. "You should have died with Ghost Unit." Gasps erupted across the room. Rodriguez grabbed the edge of the table. "Sir, what did you just—" Brianna didn't react with shock. She reacted like someone whose worst suspicion had just been confirmed. "You leaked our location," she said softly. The Admiral smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a human one. "One of several leak," he said. "Necessary ones. Ghost Unit was compromised. You were compromised." "No," Brianna said. "We were getting too close. We were tracking the wrong shipments. Shipments you were involved in." His jaw hardened. "You never learned when to follow orders. And you never learned when to stop betraying the country you swore to defend." The agents raised their weapons. But the Admiral didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't blink. He lifted his hands very slowly, not in surrender, but as if displaying something delicate. "Let's not be dramatic," he said. "You've done impressive work, Master Sergeant, truly, but you've overestimated your position. You caught a colonel, a few officers, some careless men with fragile careers." He stepped inside the room, letting the door hiss shut behind him. "But you didn't catch me," Rodriguez spoke through clenched teeth. "Sir, you're confessing to treason." Harrison gave him a pitying look. "Captain, I'm confessing to playing a larger game than any of you understand." Brianna tightened her grip on the transmitter. "The foreign network targeting personnel. You weren't stopping them. You were feeding it." "Feeding it?" He laughed softly. "I built it." Every light in the room flickered. Agent Morrison's voice shook with fury. "Harrison, you are under arrest. Stand down and—" The Admiral raised a small handheld device and clicked a button. All comms crashed. Radios died. Tablets darkened. The room's surveillance cameras powered off. An EMP pulse. He stepped forward a single inch. "Now," he said, voice low, "we can speak freely." Agent Wong moved toward him, and the Admiral's hand blurred. A blade flashed. A throat met steel. But the Admiral didn't strike Wong. He stopped inches from Wong's neck. The message was clear. He could kill any of them before they blinked. "Let me help you understand," Harrison said. "The breaches you're investigating, they're not mistakes. They're architecture. The U.S. military is too rigid, too predictable. Someone has to control the flow of information, and I chose to be that someone." "You killed my team," Brianna whispered. "Your team was in the way." His tone didn't waver. "Ghost Unit discovered a shipment container in Hellman that connected back to a private contractor. The contractor connected back to me. You should have died before decoding the files." Agent Morrison finally snapped. "You're admitting to orchestrating espionage." "Morrison," he said coldly, "you're a bureaucrat in a suit. I am national strategy." Brianna stepped in front of the agents. A physical barrier, a shield. The Admiral raised the blade in admiration. "Still protecting everyone," he said. "Even the officers who dismissed you. Permanently loyal. It's your greatest strength and your greatest weakness." Her jaw tightened. "You're right about one thing." "And what is that?" "I don't hesitate." She moved. He wasn't prepared for her speed. Her hand caught his wrist. Twisted, bent, snapped. The blade clattered to the floor. The Admiral staggered back, stunned, clutching his broken wrist as she drove him into the table. He gasped. How did you—" "You trained me," she said coldly. Agents swarmed him. He fought, but he was injured. The kind of injury only someone who knew exactly how to break an operator would inflict. When they finally restrained him, he looked up at her with a strange, terrible smile. "It doesn't matter," he whispered. "I wasn't the only one." Brianna froze. "What did you say?" "There are others," he breathed, "and you'll never see them coming." He laughed as they dragged him out. A broken, defeated man who believed he'd still won. Rodriguez exhaled shakily. "Master Sergeant, what now?" Brianna stared at the blood on the floor where the Admiral had stood. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Now, we find the rest." The room was quiet now, devastated, hollow, echoing with truths too heavy for their ranks. Thompson stepped forward, his voice raw. "Master Sergeant Mitchell, we owe you everything, and I will never forgive myself for the way I treated you." She shook her head. "Sir, this was never about me. It was about the soldiers we lost, and the ones we can still save." Rodriguez swallowed hard. "What do you need from us?" Brianna looked at each of them. "Honesty," she said. "Courage, and full cooperation." She turned toward the shattered transmitter on the floor. "The enemy wasn't out there," she whispered. "He was in the room." Agent Morrison approached her. "Master Sergeant, the Interagency Task Force wants you to lead the hunt. All of it. Every branch. Every compromised officer. Every foreign operative." Brianna nodded once. "Then we start tonight." She walked toward the door, but paused. She turned back to the officers, the agents, the people whose lives she had changed in a single day. And her voice broke just slightly as she said, "If you're watching this, if this story meant something, please subscribe to the channel. Support these stories of quiet heroes, stories of sacrifice, loyalty, and truth. It keeps their memory alive. It keeps these investigations alive. And it lets us keep telling the next chapter." Her eyes glistened. "And there is a next chapter. It's waiting for you on the screen right now. Please, don't miss it."